Boston, the winningest sports city this century. Each championship deriving from a plan. Join us as we discuss the next Boston Banner Blueprint with your hosts, Josh Finkel, Nick Walsh, and Nate Philbrook.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this emergency edition of the Boston Banner Blueprint. This is your boy Fink. I'm here with Nate and Nick. Tony C's behind the glass on the ones and twos. We're getting right into this thing. Massive Bregman is a Red Stocking. I know I had some comments earlier on some podcasts. I'll get into those later. But Nate, I mean, your initial thoughts right off the cuff. What are you thinking, man? Because this is crazy.
This completely changes the direction of the offseason. As we were talking about at length the last episode, this was a guy that checks all the boxes. He's exactly what this team needed. And, man, what a jolt of energy as we are here in the second week of February, getting ready to welcome pitchers and catchers officially into camp. And then we land the top remaining free agent, a guy that is a absolute perfect fit for this organization at this point in time. I couldn't be happier. I don't care what they pay him. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, we say it all the time, not our money, right? Spend all the money. They did that. They had to go. I mean, they had to go above and beyond. They did that. They got their guy. They played the market right, I think. They waited a while. It finally happened. I'm sending it to Nick now. Nick, Bregman thoughts. Let's go.
I saw the news last night within a minute or two of it being tweeted. And I think I had the same reaction as everyone else, dumbfounded in the sense of just being shocked that this actually happened, because for the last week or so, we've been kind of probably all bracing ourselves that it was going to be a Nolan Arenado trade. Like, you had the tweet come out from Blaze Jordan, who was going to be the top prospect in that trade. Everything was pointing towards Arenado, and kind of gave up hope on Bregman, just because you didn't think the Red Sox were going to be the Red Sox. And for at least for one glorious night, John Henry earned that cigar. He earned sitting back and basically telling all of us to shut the hell up. I am still John Henry. I am still a big market team. Finally opened up the wallet and just blew us all away, basically. Like, we weren't expecting this. Like I kept saying, John Henry was running this team like the Tampa Bay Rays. And all I got to say is, look how easy it was to get our fan base back excited. Just show that you care. Show that you're invested. And he finally did. And probably for the first time since 2019, it feels damn good that opening day is around the corner. You're excited for it, because since then, I know 2019 wasn't the year we ended up expecting it to be, but you're coming off the World Series win. Fan base is all excited. You're on that winning honeymoon, basically. But 2020 is COVID, the Mookie trade. I know 2021 we had a decent run, 2 games away from going to the World Series, but at the start of the year, we weren't excited for that team. They weren't supposed to be that good. Now, the last few years, it's just been like going to a funeral at Fenway Park if you're a Red Sox fan. Now, damn, it feels good. And I can't wait until the end of March, and especially April through September. And I think we can all agree, hopefully October now. It's just awesome. It is the best way to.
Tony?
Yeah, no, I just think it's funny because last night, me thinking, shout out my buddy JP, listener of the pod, we were talking in a PlayStation party about how we felt like there was no hope of getting Bregman, and we felt like, honestly, Chicago was the place that was going to end up getting him. And just seeing that news break last night, it excited me the most. Closest thing I can think of was how I felt when I felt like we were going to get Juan Soto. Just a little bit less of a degree. Obviously, it's not Juan Soto, but that's how excited I was about this.
And PT, I'm glad you brought up Juan Soto. Like, yes, Juan Soto was the white whale of the offseason. Anyone would want him. But what last night showed was it doesn't take a $800 million player to show that you're a big market team. It took making a strong trade for a young, controllable pitcher. Like, you haven't paid him anything, and we'll probably get into that later about any sort of crochet extension. But for once, they had an investment in a player. They went out and said, you know what? If you're getting offered $30 million a year, we're going to up it to 40. You might not get the years you want, but we're going to overpay to get our guy. And they finally did. And it didn't take Juan Soto to get us excited. Juan Soto would have been nice. Like, let's not kid ourselves. But Alex Bregman, we've been talking about him for months now. It's just perfect to get him into a Red Sox uniform.
Yeah, and I'll be upfront and honest. I know I said some things about Alex Bregman on some previous podcasts, but I'm going to walk through my thought process here. All the initial reports were he wanted 6 or 7 years. He wanted a longer deal. And I was against that. And I stated this on the podcast. I said, because I wanted the young guys to play. I wanted to see maybe Grisham, maybe Campbell, let them play. Because it felt like at the time, Alex Bregman was not coming here. It felt like he wanted the Red Sox, but the Red Sox didn't want him. We saw the reports that Cora and I think one of the front office guys wanted him, but then they were kind of split in half, right down the middle of who wanted Bregman, who didn't. So seeing all that, it's like, I'm not going to, Nate.
Yeah, it was Sam Kennedy along with Cora, and then Breslow was on the outs.
That's what I thought. I just didn't want to say, and I knew someone would know. So anyway, so that's kind of why I said that, because I didn't want a player like that. I didn't want Alex Bregman for 7 years. I'll be honest. Like, I think by year 5, 6, 7 of that deal, I think Nate.
I don't think
Nick. Sorry.
I was going to say, I don't think any of us would want 6 or 7 years. Like, but at the time, it was the price of doing business. You were going to have to overpay to get them in some capacity. Now they overpaid in the AAV, but obviously, if he got 6 or 7 years, he's not getting $40 million a year. You're basically buying out a short-term contract to get him to sign on that dotted line.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of those longer-term options he had, but that was pretty much just my thought process. I was like, I'm not going to talk myself into something where I'm reading that he wants the Red Sox. They aren't sure on him, so I'm not going to get my hopes up, because I did that with Soto. I did that with Yamamoto. I've done it before, done it with a few, like I've done it with the Patriots. Like, so I'm sick of getting hurt, honestly, so I was just trying to talk myself out of it. I'm thrilled he's here. Takes can change. I'm changing it. I'm thrilled he's here. It elevates this team to, I think, the best team in the AL East. I think they are very dangerous on all 3 levels of baseball: defense, pitching, and in the lineup. I'm so excited. I've said it multiple times on the Boston Banner Blueprint pod. I think I'm ecstatic now, honestly. I think that's the word to describe it, because I mean, we've hit on everything Bregman brings, and we'll probably hit on it again, but it's just so exciting to see, and it's happy to see that we're not the Tampa Bay Red Sox right now. We're finally back to being in Boston. We moved back into Fenway, and we're back home. So,
yeah. So to break down that deal for any of those that are living under a rock and have not yet seen it, so 3 years and $120 million at $40 million per year is the contract as it's currently stated. There is an opt-out after each season. However, the current present day value of that contract is 3 years for $90 million, meaning there is $10 million per season. That is deferred money, taking a page out of the. Go ahead, Fink.
Another thing I want to add is I'm also happy with the opt-outs, because it doesn't handcuff you too long. So say he does opt out, you have Campbell, you have Meyer waiting in the wing. They have options, and that's another reason that I am so excited with this deal. And I don't care about the $40 million. We say spend all the money, and they did that. They had to pay more. They did it. They got their guy. Back to you, Nate.
Yeah, and so that's the point exactly right there. Is they identified their guy, they went and got him. I completely agree with you that 5, 6, 7 years, it was not a fit. 3 years, I don't care what you pay. It's a fit. This is a guy that makes the team better. This is a guy that in all facets of the game. And so when you take a page out of the Dodgers book, as I was just talking about, of being able to spread the wealth a little bit, they have a $30 million cap hit rather than a $40 million cap hit. It spreads that pain out a little bit, but you get an immediate boost. This raises the ceiling a huge amount. This raises the floor a huge amount. This is such a huge get, and you have that surefire thing that you know is going to play up the middle likely at second base. Alex Bregman, the first guy that we've had in that position since Bogey. And so that's a guy that, I love this contract for Bregman. I love this contract for Craig, getting a little bit creative. And I couldn't be more ecstatic about it.
I think, Nick, you said it a few. I was going to give you some props because you said it a few episodes, Nick. They had to think outside of the box. They had to get creative to get talent in the building, and that's exactly what they did. And I'm going to say it again. I'm sorry. I'm so excited. So excited. Yeah. Your turn.
Yeah, and I was going to say about the opt-outs, if anyone's concerned about the opt-outs, you should be hoping he opts out of year one, because at $40 million a year, if he's going to opt out of 2 years and $80 million for the rest of the last 2 years, that means he went Barry Bonds level, because he's not getting $40 million on the open market next year. So if he thinks he's going to opt out, that means he had a tremendous year, and that's going to help us obviously this year. And if he doesn't live up to obviously $40 million a year, which chances are he probably won't be a $40 million a year player. This is the highest level, highest AAV that the Boston Red Sox have ever signed. It is the 6th highest AAV in the history of the sport. Now, Bregman is not that caliber player, but it's 3 years. It's not going to handcuff you down the road. If he doesn't live up to it, okay, this is the point of being a big market team. This is the point of being the Boston Red Sox. You can sign some bad contracts and live with it. But they were just afraid to go the extra mile all these years. And to use the word that Breslow used at the beginning of the offseason, they didn't want to get uncomfortable. They just got uncomfortable at $40 million a year. But also, it's not the 6-7 year contract, so they're going to be able to withstand it either if he overperforms or if he underperforms. The opt-outs are the opt-outs, and I think the opt-outs are a benefit for the Red Sox more than they are a benefit of Bregman.
I think this is the perfect time to segue into the other offers that we know that Bregman had on the table that he ended up declining to become a Boston Red Sox. So the Astros, we know they offered the 6 years, 156. The Tigers, they offered 6 years, 171. And the Cubs, they were 4 years for 120. So a shorter term deal from the Cubs. But Nate, take this away and kind of talk about some things here in these other contract offers.
Yeah. So to me, what this tells me is 6 for 156 from Houston. That tells me that he really had no interest in returning to Houston, right? That's both term and a significant financial commitment. Now, Detroit was a playoff team last year, so you can't say that they're a bunch of slouches, and you obviously have some horses out in Detroit, but from a ballpark standpoint, it just does not fit what Bregman's game is. And so that's why when you're thinking about legacy and you're thinking about what he's building of his ultimate dream of being inducted into the Hall of Fame or something like that, as these years of 31 to 34 of what he signed for with the Red Sox are going to be critical in that argument. And so Detroit just wasn't a good fit from a ballpark perspective. And maybe there was some other aspects there that led him to not want to live in Detroit. I can't imagine why. But last one being Cubs, 4 for 120. They didn't necessarily win on the years or the AAV. And so when you are swinging a miss on both of those, it's kind of tough to win the player. So that's where those stand. But ultimately, given those options, why do you guys think that he ultimately chose Boston?
$40 million a year.
Bingo. Money talks.
Money talks. Oh,
yeah.
Jinx.
Money talks.
So aside from that, I mean, he has said right along that it was reported, right, that he wanted to be in Boston, that he had significant interest in playing in Boston. And I think one of the main things that goes back to is Fenway Park. This guy is tailor-made for Fenway Park. He's pull happy, he hits the ball in the air a lot, and he's a guy that does not strike out. So his home run power to left, and then he slaps the ball to right, which obviously Fenway Park right field just goes on for days. As I mentioned on the last podcast, this is a guy that I would expect to hit close to 300. He hit 260 last year in a down year, but with 26 bombs, this is a guy I would expect to significantly improve that. Batting likely between Devers and Casas there. This is, I just can't say it enough. This is exactly what this team needed to go from good to great. And when you are in that echelon, like you said, I would expect them to compete for the AL East. I would expect them to compete for the AL crown. And I would put them right there of the final three teams being Red Sox, Yankees, and Rangers for coming out of the AL.
So revisiting a prior topic on a Red Sox pod that we did, we can all agree that the lineup is much improved now, right?
Huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, because before, like I mentioned, I made the comparison. If you were going into the season without Bregman and where it stood, you were banking on Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell to be Jim Rice and Fred Lynn of 75, of making an immediate over impact as rookies. And now you don't have to do that. Like, they're going to give their time this year. They're going to come up, one or even both may break camp with the club, but now you don't have to force it. You can let them take their time. If they earn it, great. That's just a bonus. If not, let them start the year in AAA and get their feet underneath them and let them mature more on their pace instead of on the team's pace, because you don't necessarily need them right now.
So as I mentioned in the last episode too, that makes those guys be a piece and not have to be the piece. And I think that's key in a winning locker room, that you don't have to rely on these 20 and 22-year-old guys that have never done it at this level before to go out and be immediate superstars. It allows them to mature into this process. And not to mention that it allows them to have a guy that leads by example. Bregman has played in a lot of postseason games there in Houston. And this is a guy that's been there and done that. And he's been at the pinnacle of the sport. And he's led his team as a pinnacle of the sport. And so that's where I think, this is just so invaluable. And not to mention, when you're talking about the lineup getting deeper, I think the addition of Bregman makes Yoshida a lot easier fit as well. And so that was kind of a piece that really stuck out like a sore thumb, that adding Bregman to second base allows Yoshida to slot into that DH a lot more friendly. Go ahead, Nick.
And can I bring up another point that really hasn't been talked about? I think we can all agree that Red Sox baseball is at its best when the Red Sox and Yankees are both good. That rivalry still brings out hatred on both sides. Maybe not at the peak of 03 and 04, but we saw in the 2018 playoffs, the one-game playoff in 2021, that when games matter against these two teams, it still gets feisty. And you're bringing in a guy that New York fans hate. It goes all the way back to the cheating scandals with the trash cans and all that. In 2017, you bring one of the faces of that scandal to this team, and if they're playing in late September, and hell, if they match up in October, good God, that's starting to throw gasoline on a fire again. You're getting that passion burn between these two fan bases and bringing this rivalry back. Like, it's a grand slam home run from on the field to the TV production. Like, that is pure chef's kiss of bring Breslow in.
And to piggyback on that, Nick, think about, not only did they just bring in Bregman with that controversy, but also what did Walker Buehler just do? He just shut them down in the World Series to record the last out of the World Series. And that's a guy that also has a chip on his shoulder and is a dog. And so between Bregman and Crochet and now Buehler, these are three guys that they bring an edge that this team did not have last year. Go ahead, Fink.
I'll add two things. Chapman.
Roll is Chapman too.
Yeah.
And then another thing, listen very, very carefully. The Yankees are going to fucking suck. They're going to be so bad.
No. They're not going to be as good as they were. They're not going to be the AL champs again this year, but they're not going to be bad. They got Cole and they got Fried since 2019. The number 1 and number 2 pitchers in all of baseball in terms of ERA is Cole and Fried. Pitching is still
you would
what
argue
wins.
injuries all day long. Fried can't stay healthy, so same with
Fair
a lot
enough.
of the guys.
Last year.
They also have 8 guys that are age 34 or older on this baseball team.
I'm
They
just
don't have
saying,
a third
like,
baseman. They're probably the 3rd or 4th best team in the AL East right now.
okay,
So,
let's not
outside
get
of-
over excited.
So, Vaughn Grisham, how does Alex Bregman affect Vaughn Grisham now in Boston?
I
gonna
actually
send
love Grisham. Oh, sorry.
I was going to send it to
actually
you, so that's perfect.
Yeah. I love Grisham's answer today because he was asked about it, and he goes, I'm excited because it's just going to make me better. I'm going to be able to compete. And he goes, obviously, I want to be on the field. I want to have the playing time, but it's just going to make him better. That's one thing we saw all the years of being Patriots fans, that there was always inner competition at position levels. Like, you brought in Rodney Harrison, and he beat out Lawyer Malloy. Brady beat out Bledsoe. You drafted Jimmy G, and that extended Brady's career because it lit a fire under him. Like, this I go back to the last Red Sox episode where I want quality players at every position, and I want a quality bench, because that inner competition is just going to rising water raises all boats, or whatever the saying goes. So I'm sorry, Dom Smith isn't going to elevate Tristan Casas at first base because there's no competition there. And you're not going to bring in someone of Casas level, but can you bring in a solid major league backup at different positions, at different benches? I think Grisham can be a solid backup on this team. And again, if it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years of Bregman, Grisham's either going to get better, he's going to be the new Rusney Castillo in AAA and never see the light of day, or he's going to be a solid trade piece. Like, it's hard to. Obviously we want to see Grisham play because we traded Chris Sale for him last year, but at the end of the day, Bregman's going to make everyone around him better.
Yeah, competition brings out the best in everybody. So, and these are professional athletes. I think they like a little competition. Nate, you have any Vaughn Grisham thoughts?
Yeah, I think his fit is really interesting at this point. Maybe as a 4th outfielder from a right-handed bat, if Ref Snyder goes down or something like that, he's a super utility in the infielder. Obviously, he played 3rd for Atlanta as well as 2nd and short, so obviously he has some ability there. But where he slots in is a lot less clear, and it's also a lot less clear given the fact that they keep talking up Campbell so much, rightfully so, as he's an amazing player, but they haven't talked about Grisham since, they opened camp. They talked about how he's finally healthy. He's rebuilt a lot of his strength. He's 20 pounds heavier than he was at the finish of the season because he's able to build that back up after he started the year sick. And of course, they all lose weight throughout the season because of the grind. But, it's his fit is really, really interesting. Now, given I really try and remove why we have Vaughn Grisham and the fact that we traded away Cy Young, Chris Sale for him. However, I think that he's certainly a valuable piece that plays an important role. It just remains unclear as far as exactly what that is. Now, where I think it plays a much more important role is on the next guy that you're going to just talk about. So that's where I have a little bit more of a firm stance.
Yeah, so our next guy on the list is Marcelo Meyer. So, Nate, going right back to you, what does this signing do for Marcelo Meyer?
Yeah, so guy that's been in one of the top prospects in the system for a while now. He's, again, another guy that has struggled with injuries. And for those that don't remember, he was promoted to AAA last year and then never played a single game at AAA. So this is still a young kid that still has time to mature. He's probably the last of the 3 between Campbell, Roman Anthony, and then Marcelo Meyer. He's probably the last of the 3 that I can imagine reaching the major league level solely based off of need. and then of course with health and just natural maturation process. But if you look at Bregman hasn't opted out after this year, Story hasn't opted out after this year, and then of course you always have the injury bug. And so Marcelo's a guy that's primed, maybe not to break camp, but potentially towards roster expansion in September or something like that. That I can certainly see him playing a much more impactful role. Plus, he's left-handed, so it's we just spent all this time talking about balancing the lineup with right-handed, and then he's going to come in as a left-handed bat that doesn't necessarily jive as well.
Nick, any Meyer thoughts?
Yeah, I think like Nate said, out of the three, he's the farthest away from the big leagues. So, and if Campbell is, we were talking about Campbell possibly being the second baseman, if not left fielder. If they're set on Campbell at second base, it kind of basically roadblocks Marcelo. But if, say, Bregman is gone in a year and you have Campbell out in left field, Story played second base his first year here. Slide Story back over, and you have your young guy at shortstop. And all of a sudden, your infield is Devers at third, Mayer at short, Story at second, Cassis at first. That's a damn good infield. But again, the point of being the Boston Red Sox, you can build for the future, but still be relevant today and spend. And spending doesn't always necessarily have to be $30-40 million a year to a player. It could be exactly what you did with Crochet. You traded a young, huge prospect out of your system to get the guy you want. If Bregman stays, Campbell works out, whatever, and he is roadblock, what a blue trade chip. That is former number one prospect in all of baseball, still in the top 5 of all baseball. Anthony's number 1, who's going to be up this year. So either at the deadline or next offseason, if he's roadblock in our system, what a perfect trade piece.
Vink, what's your thoughts on Marcelo?
I don't know, because I've never seen him play baseball.
Fair.
I really don't know. I went to Portland twice to see him play, and he didn't play. I saw him sit in the dugout. I mean, he looks the part. I'll tell you that. Big kid, looks athletic, good frame. And I mean, I don't know. I'm still excited about Meyer. It's not like he's falling down in rankings or anything. Just the injuries can't really stay healthy, and it feels like it's always kind of a random injury. It kind of comes out of nowhere sometimes, but the youth is why I will never get concerned. I mean, I'm all for youth. So, but like Nick said, it definitely is an interesting trade piece. And I have a name I want to toss out there for a trade piece later on that has been kind of growing on Twitter and growing on me a little bit, but I don't have too many Marcelo Mayer thoughts. So I think we can transition into Christian Campbell. So Nate, sending it back to you. Christian Campbell, Alex Bregman, what happens?
Yeah, so this is all with the caveat that it's expected that Bregman plays second base. They had slotted in, whether it's Grissom, whether it's Christian Campbell, as one of those guys was going to win the position at a camp. Now it's pretty clear that if that is the intention to keep Rafi at third base, that then Bregman's going to play second base. So that then takes Christian Campbell to either a super utility role, as he has played shortstop, second base, left field, right field in the high minors. I don't necessarily love that for a guy that is, coming from AAA. If he's not going to get regular at bats, I would rather him stay in AAA and continue to improve. However, this does make a lot of sense as a right-handed, really thumper bat in left field. Allows Massa to stay at DH. It allows Rafaela to then go into a super utility role that I think he is a lot more fit for. So I'd really like to see him in left field to break camp.
So for me, I think Campbell might play like a month into the year, because I think all it's going to really take is Rafi to get banged up a little bit, and that forces them to put him at DH. Because I think the Sox eventually are going to say, enough's enough. We need your bat more than the defense. Send Bregman back to third. Campbell plays second, fixes your problems, and that's an easy way for the Red Sox to not have to really be the bearer of bad news. They can use the injury history, and it's obviously already there. But Rafi still plays games. He was banged up all last year and still played. He cares. He wants to play baseball. He wants to blow his big bubbles and just hit home runs and eat some ice cream. But I think he's going to force the Red Sox hand here at some point. Maybe it's not a month in, but I do think it is probably this season he becomes the DH. And that brings me into the Yoshida thing. I think Yoshida's in a package with maybe Abreu or a couple prospects to San Diego for Dylan Cease.
Now you're talking. Now that's a
Oh, yeah.
rotation.
Obviously, Cease, he's going to expire after this upcoming season, but that's probably a deal you don't make if you don't think there's a chance you extend the guy. But if you bring Dylan Cease in here, then there's no question we shouldn't win the AL East. But there's also another package. It's not really a package. I would do Yoshi for Robert Suarez straight up as well to San Diego. So I think there's two things we could do with the Padres if they want to call Craig up, because Craig is cooking. Actually, he's right here. Been blocking him the whole time. Sorry, Craig. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Campbell. I think he's going to play fairly early on in this year. I think it's going to come down to health, and the Red Sox have not stayed healthy in the last few years. So, but going back to what you said, Nate, I don't love him being in the super utility role, because I would rather a young kid be back in AAA getting everyday experience, working on their craft, stuff like that. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on Campbell, I guess. Nick?
Think we're actually going to agree for once on an episode. I don't want Campbell in a super utility role. Like, it's great to have that versatility, but when you're starting your career like this and if you're breaking camp, I want your position set. And that could be you're the fourth outfielder. You might not be playing it every day, but I don't want you bouncing from second base to third base to left field. Look how, like, two totally different levels of prospects. I get that. But when he first came up, Blake Swihart was supposed to be the catcher of the future, and they tried to move him to left field, and he was a shell of himself. Like, you throw too much at a young guy too quickly at a game that's meant to break you. The sport of baseball is meant to make you fail. Make it as simple as possible. I said on our last episode about Tiger Woods' dad, the acronym KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't move Campbell around. Give him a designated role and let him excel and grow into that role.
Yeah, and I don't know why you would want to do that to him. Like, he's been an everyday player in the minors. He's grown into what we now see. I don't know why you would. I think that stunts the development right away. That completely derails what you've been doing with him, what he's been hearing in the media. And I know he said he has tuned out everything that's been said and he just focuses on him. Obviously, to some extent, you see it. You do know what's going on, what's being said about you. I think all that plays into it. If you go from being the guy and then all of a sudden you're just super utility guy, like, you're not getting everyday at bats, you're not what you were supposed to be. Like, I think that affects a guy. And that's another reason, like, they have to have a plan. And I think, or maybe not a plan, but a blueprint. And I think that blueprint will come together soon once everyone's there, once we hear more from Cora. And obviously he didn't have much to say about it because they haven't crossed the I's and dotted the T's yet on the contract. But yeah, I just would not love to see Campbell in a super utility role. I don't think that benefits him at all. So, I guess David Hamilton time. We can move in to David Hamilton. He had kind of a breakout year. He had a breakout year last year, we can say. So, Nate, David Hamilton thoughts now.
So this is the guy that I think is, at this point, the odd man out. That he deserves to be on a major league roster. He certainly showed that last year. 3 outs above average in the field, playing multiple positions at second base, shortstop. Obviously a absolute threat on the base paths anytime he gets on base. And so this is a guy that I would really like to see get a shot somewhere. I just don't see, given the depth and the youth and the experience that we're hopefully bringing up through the system, I don't see that fit being here. And so, to your point on Suarez earlier, I can definitely see David Hamilton being moved for that late end bullpen guy. That's really the last piece that we are truly looking for at this point, is a guy to truly lock down the ninth inning, whether that is Liam Hendriks or just another elite arm out in the tail end of the bullpen. I can see David Hamilton being a part of that package. So if he does play, this is a guy that would really, he would be the utility guy with Rafaela. So yeah, that's the last idea for David Hamilton, is if he is a player, that I can see him being more of a utility role guy. So Nick, what do you think about David Hamilton?
I'm going to basically echo everything you just said. Like, out of all the guys we talked about, I think Hamilton is the guy that is left out. Like, he's not one of your top prospects like a Campbell or a Mayer, and he's not replacing Bregman anytime soon or anything like that. So either a depth piece, which he'd be a positive depth piece, or the common theme of me tonight is trade chips. Like, he's going to be an asset one way or another, either as a backup or in a package. We just haven't seen where that is yet.
Yeah, so I think it's a perfect time now to segue into the complete offseason to date so far, because I don't think there's too much more coming. Probably a back end type of guy at some point, but this is pretty much our offseason. It's pretty much wrapped up now. So quickly going through the names of who Craig Breslow and co. brought in. It's Alex Bregman, Garrett Crochet, Walker Buehler, Lucas Giolito with an asterisk because he got hurt last year and now he's back for this season. So technically you can count that, because I think that is a pretty big addition. Patrick Sandoval, Aroldis Chapman, Justin Wilson, Carlos Narvaez, someone I'm kind of excited for, and then Blake Sable.
If we're giving Giolito an asterisk because he was signed last year, why did you leave out Liam Hendriks in the bullpen?
Oh, that's a good point. This is Nate's list.
That's my bad.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good point.
You literally ran over Nate with the box. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, I'm not going to get any heat for that. Just kidding. We're a team here. No, that's on us, but hey, it happens. But yeah, Liam Hendriks too. Add him to the list. That's fine, because he's probably going to be your closer. So, but I mean, we're going to get into our offseason grades now, updated grades here in a couple seconds. But I mean, you can't be mad at that offseason. Even without the Bregman piece, it still felt like a pretty solid offseason. They addressed what they needed, which was starting pitching. And then just the cherry on top is Bregman. It's everything they've needed. We've talked about it. Mostly Nick and Nate have talked about it on this podcast. But I'll send it over to Nate. Nate, what are your thoughts?
Looking for my updated grade?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking for your updated grade.
So for those that don't remember, and you should go back and listen so you can compare it to here, but I was a D- or an F just a week and a half ago, largely based off of expectations coming into this offseason, the talk that they did not walk, and so all of that changes. So I'm at a B+ right now, and I'm going to tell you exactly how they can be at an A- or an A, and that's number one with a Crochet extension, which by all accounts seems like a when, not an if, which you love to hear, but it's not there yet. And so a Crochet extension and then a back into the bullpen piece. Hopefully that is Liam Hendriks that locks down the ninth inning, but I'd still like to see another arm out there to lengthen out that bullpen and create that depth that Cora is so famously uses amazingly throughout the season for 162. And so right now I'm at a B+. I am, there's a very, very clear blueprint of getting to an A- or an A. I think that this signing is the cherry on top of a good offseason that started with expectations that were crazy high. They didn't live up to it. Really, really disappointed. But now we are right back in the thick of it. And to your point, Fink, I think that the Sox are back. The Sox are going to be competing for the AL East, and we're poised for a run not only in 2025 but 2025 and beyond. Because I mean, in all honesty, like, who has it better than us right now? We have the number one farm system in baseball. We have a ready
Dodgers.
now team. This team is locked and loaded, and I couldn't be more excited. So going to PT for his updated grade.
Yeah, so I think my original grade was a B- and a C, like in the C+ range, and it's definitely jumped up to that A- range after this signing with Bregman. I think you just look at the top 3 guys we got this year: Walker Buehler, Garrett, and now Bregman. I think that's a great offseason as is, but it's all these little moves as well that we've done that have really built this team up. And I think it is great that I think the one thing we do need is to get that 9th inning guy, as you were saying, and I think that would boost me to that A grade range. But for sure, I think this was a great offseason. They talked all in the summer and leading up how this was going to be the offseason I felt like they would spend, and they really did do it. So I'm very happy.
Think.
Yeah, I know I gave my original grade as like a C+, minus, and I forgot that there was D's and all that jazz. I was just upset, because the Red Sox weren't being the Red Sox. We were still in Tampa Bay. I tweeted it yesterday. It's an A from me. They backed up the talk for the most part. They addressed what they needed to do. They spent from their prospect pool. They spent money. They replaced Kenley with Chapman, who apparently we've been his favorite team his whole life, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
That kind of hurts me a little bit, but it's an A from me. It's everything we needed. You got that right-handed bat. You got that leader. We can pitch now. The defense is going to be much improved, and it comes at a great time because the Yankees lost Soto. They brought in some things, yes, but they still have question marks. They're not a complete team yet. You kind of have them in somewhat of a down year. The Blue Jays, they're all over the place. The Rays, they're going to pitch their asses off, but I mean, they have 2 bats that I can really think of right now. And then the Orioles, I'm not putting them, this is in no order, by the way. The Orioles are obviously probably that makes no sense. They're, in my eyes, the best team in the AL East right now. It's just going to come down to if they can pitch. If that pitching is anything close to mediocre, then they're probably winning the AL East. If it's below that, it's going to take an uphill battle for them to compete, I think, with a team like the Red Sox, even the Yankees, even though I said they're going to suck. But yeah, I'm super excited. It was a great offseason. It changed in a week and a half, like Nate said, and that's all right. Things can change because the information we had a week and a half ago was nowhere close to what we have now. So that's where we stand now, and there's no reason to be upset or anything. Like, obviously, the narrative with Henry and the spending, it's probably not fully squashed yet, but this is a good step in the right direction. Have that cigar, John. I'll go light one up later too.
Yeah,
Nick?
and my grade, I said a week and a half ago or whenever that episode was, hadn't changed since the morning of the Walker Buehler signing. I said if the offseason ended that day, it was a B offseason, a solid B. They got their young ace, which was what they desperately needed. And they got Walker Buehler as a solid 3, if not high end 2, if he gets back to vintage Walker Buehler. And yes, I was disappointed at the time, like we all were, that they hadn't gone out and done more, but they still addressed the pitching, which was the biggest need last year, the starting rotation. And we were just going to try to get ourselves excited for the young guys, and which is fine in its own right, but we had the expectation of Juan Soto at the beginning of the off seasons. So I was trying to be consistent that if in December, if I said if the offseason ended today, it was a B. So a week and a half ago, I still said B. Now I'm at an A-. And like Nate said, there's a clear path to get to the A+ range, and that's a crochet deal and a back end of the bullpen piece. Now, I'm going to leave the caveat open that you don't necessarily need the caveat. I mean, you seriously don't need the back end of the bullpen piece by opening day. That is the most easily obtainable piece throughout throughout the regular season. You see relievers dealt all the time at the deadline. So we're talking about all these trade assets. You get to the trade deadline, you can clearly see we're in a great position to make a run and there's a piece that comes available at the end of July, use your trade chips, go all in. Would I want that piece by opening day within the next couple of days for spring training? Yeah, of course. But the reliever is a lot more accessible to get than your $40 million a year prize acquisition of the offseason. Okay.
I have a couple thoughts. You think if the Guardians are bad by the deadline, you could make an offer for Clase? Especially with the postseason stuff? You think they would move off him?
I mean, it is the Guardians, so I wouldn't eliminate it.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying. I think they would do anything. And then I have another idea. What about Johan Duran? He didn't have a great year last year, but you get him with Bailey. I mean, you can't teach 102 with a 97-mile-an-hour splitter. So I think Duran's probably the more likely option there, but
yeah, Duran would be nice,
would be
particularly in
fun.
the fact that the Twins are in process of being sold, and so who knows what's to come of the Minnesota Twins. And so plus, I mean, his bullpen entry song and oh man, is it
it
electric.
would be so cool.
That would be so cool coming out of Fenway. So
And I don't think that would cost that much.
no, probably not. I mean, they were in talks earlier this year of a potential David Hamilton and Duran swap. So that would
Sign
be
me up.
something.
Sign me
That would
up.
be something to keep an eye on.
I would drive Hamilton to the airport. If we're being honest, that would be crazy. But so we all got our updated offseason grades off our chest. So I guess we can jump into who we think deserves the most credit for Alex Bregman becoming a Boston Red Sox.
Can I
There's
answer
four-
this one first?
Yes, you can. Go right ahead.
I'm going to answer this and say Nick Pivetta, because he signed yesterday finally with San Diego for 4 years, $55 million. And for those out there that don't know, he had the qualifying offer given to him, which means a compensation pick was coming to the Red Sox. And this whole time, Bregman had the compensation pick hanging over his head. The moment that Pivetta signed, 3 hours later, Bregman's a Red Sox. If that truly was the holdup this whole time, God, that's a dangerous game of chicken. Pick. But at the end of the day, they read the market right. They got the player in the end. They got the player at their price. Breslow played this perfectly. He walked a tightrope because there were some landmines out there. If you lost Bregman because you were waiting on the qualifying offer with Pivetta, that would have been a bad look. But at the end of the day, just like they did with JD Martinez 7 years ago, they waited it out, got the player at the reduced price that they wanted. And at the end of the day, everyone's happy. So jokingly, I say Nick Pivetta is the one to get the credit today.
For me, it's Bregman. I think Bregman gets the credit for me. He's pretty much made it known he wanted to be a Red Sox. I said it earlier on the episode that the Red Sox front office was split down the middle. They weren't too sure. One side wanted him, one side wasn't too sure on him. Obviously, the deal got done. Breslow, he's being called the architect of the deal. He got it to the finish line, and John Henry had something to say about that. But for me, it's definitely Bregman. He wanted to be here. The Red Sox finally came to their senses, and they went and got the guy that wanted to be here. And the narrative of players not wanting to come to Boston is officially dead because he turned down the long-term deals, turned down not more money, but what he wanted out of the get-go, a long-term deal. He wants a home. Turned that down. He wanted to be here. He waited and waited and waited. We waited. He's here. He's home. We can't say anything but thank you to John Henry and Craig Breslow, and just got to wait and see what happens now.
Yeah, so for me, it is Breslow. We talked about some creativity that was needed in order for it to fit both player and team, and I think that this does exactly that. That sure, they paid a premium in the AAV department, but they also got a break in terms of tenure that they are required to pay Bregman for a 3-year commitment, which, by the way, is the same 3-year commitment that we would have had to pay for Nolan Arenado. Yet Nolan Arenado is starting the season 3 years older than Alex Bregman. And so that's a win in and of itself. And so not to say that, John Henry opening the checkbook isn't a big winner. That's something we've been crying for a long time. But certainly Craig Breslow getting creative in the way that he got creative to get this and push this over the finish line. And by all accounts, it seems like it happened in a very, very short period of time. When this guy really commits to something, like we saw earlier this season, earlier this offseason with the Garrett Crochet deal, that it was dead, and then all of a sudden it was done. It seems like it was the same thing with Bregman, that they all but moved on to Arenado, and then all of a sudden Bregman's a Red Sox. And so that's my pick is Craig Breslow, year 2, certainly getting his feet from under him, and he's delivering this offseason. Go ahead.
Yeah, rest in peace to Cardinals Live, huh? I don't know if you've seen his tweets and stuff, but that guy was saying some crazy stuff. He was their new Mick. He was the Mick of St. Louis. Because obviously Mick did all that stuff with Soto, but and Nolan Arenado, that's not the same level. But he was talking that Nolan Arenado was coming to Boston. He trusted his Cardinals source. So,
well, and it does seem as though there was a trade in place.
No, I agree. That is true.
There was some sources that I actually heard from that did have the Arenado and Herrera for Josh Winkowski and Nazem Zanatello and Blaze Jordan. That deal was done pending Bregman. So
the narrative of star players not wanting to come to Boston. Yeah, Bueller was a 1-year deal. I know you mentioned him that he signed quickly. But the job isn't finished on building the roster. You still got to do it next year when you need a big free agent 2 years down the road. But for once, we heard at the beginning of the offseason that the agents were saying, the Red Sox are actually serious this time. It's just not them talking. They're trying to put their money where their mouths were. And it was just, up until last night, an unfulfilled promise. And for once, they finally did that. And if anything, it sends that message to the players and the agents that, yeah, if you're worth it, we will pay you what we think you're worth to get you in our building. And for the first time in 5 years, they landed the guy. And to me, that is to be applauded. Absolutely, 100%. I'm absolutely excited and going to give them their flowers for today. But you still got to build on it and not stop here in off seasons down the road. You can't go another 5 years what you just went through. Like, this has to be that we're back and we're back for good.
And I think that's a perfect way to pretty much wrap up this emergency podcast with the news of Alex Bregman finally becoming a Red Stocking. But I'm going to give a little teaser for the next episode. We have a special guest coming on. I'm not going to give away too much. We're going to be talking about the Boston Bruins and specifically some prospects, some names like that during this four nations face-off break. I'm super excited for that one. The guest, he's a pretty good friend of mine, so can't wait for that. But Nate, Nick, and Tony, let's get into some final thoughts, and then we will sign off.
Who has it better than us? Who has it better than us? That's all I have to say. Who has it better than us?
The LA Dodgers is the only answer, but for the AL,
Nick, shut the fuck up.
Whoa! Oh, holy shit! Holy shit!
Am I wrong?
Shut the fuck up. I like that. I say that to Tony all the time, actually.
Am I wrong? Like, would we not trade places with the Dodgers right about now?
Nah, we still have better than them. We own them in the World Series, 2-0.
2-0. 1-0.
I thought we played twice. Way back when.
Nope.
Back in the day. You sure?
Nope.
All right, we'll get our stat guy on that.
We went 86 years without winning.
Oh, good point. Good point.
1918, they beat the Cubs. 04, Cardinals 07, Rockies 13, Cardinals 18, Dodgers.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Little Walsh's vault right there. Tony, any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, you guys we've all kind of covered everything about the season. I'm very excited for the upcoming baseball season. All the moves this team's made. I think it's an A- off season. Get the Garrett deal done, and it'll be an A.
Nick, did you say your final thoughts?
Gonna echo everybody else. It's an A- off season for me. For the first time in 5 years, I'm excited for opening day. Excited for a baseball season, and not being excited partway through when they are playing above their heads like in 2021. But John Henry opening up the wallet to spend $40 million a year on Bregman is going to make me open up my wallet and deal with his crappy Nesson 360 app to watch these guys day in and day out for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's going to be, I think, a very good season. Red Sox are going to win the AL East. Boston Banner Blueprint is going to make a name for itself if we haven't already. And that is all from us for this evening in this emergency pod. So, peace.